The next morning I woke up, and again, I don't recall who called my mom, but she came in and was like, she's gone.
Hi, my name is Daniel, and this is another episode of The Death of My, and today I talked to my friend Jaki, who I've known since middle school, so a long time, and her story and who she lost as a friend a long time ago, when they were about 13. And you know, this conversation is pretty cool, because a little bit later you hear her call her mom, and they actually talk about the grief and the death of a friend and how her mom went through it too, and it was the first time we talked about it, and it is quite amazing to hear. It happened firsthand. So I really hope you enjoy. Bye.
Hi, it's your dad. Just calling to say hi. Check in up and see how you're doing. I hope all is well. Everything's pretty much the same here. I'm doing okay. I love you.
Hi.
Hey,
How's it going?
I'm a little nervous.
Don't be nervous. It's fine. What's your name?
My name's Jaki, Yermian.
Who are you?
I am 27.
Yeah.
I live in San Diego. I've known you since we were in middle school.
It's crazy. Long time.
A lot of shit has happened.
Yeah.
A lot of good shit, a lot of bad shit.
Yeah.
I'm a business owner.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a granddaughter and a friend and a girlfriend.
I love it. It's almost like your tombstone.
I'm
Survived by two.
and I made it.
Yeah.
I'm here, bitches.
Here we are. Who died?
Wow. All right. We're good. We're doing it. One of my very good friends, if not what I would have considered my best friend, died when we were 13, and her name was Leslie Carrion.
Oh. How did it happen?
So that's a great starting off point. You and I were talking about this earlier today, how how I have blocked out a lot of my memory from like a certain span of years, which I know why, you know why. And it's mostly because of trauma.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that I made this like inaccessible because when a new boyfriend or a friend or whoever asks me that question, this is exactly how I answer. I say, I think she died from a heart problem or an asthma attack. Like, I literally don't know the exact medical reason. Mostly because we were 13, but also because I think I block it out.
Right. But when you're 13, so that was almost 15 years ago now, which is actually so crazy. If you just like close your eyes and take yourself back to 15 years ago, we're in 8th grade, 7th grade.
Middle school.
Yeah, one of those. I think it was in November that she passed because I remember her too.
Yep.
It's weird that I know that, but
it shows how like traumatic this was and impactful for everybody, whether you were friends with her or not.
Yeah. Do you remember your initial thoughts? If you can kind of just go back, like what your initial thoughts and feelings were when like that sudden death happened.
100%.
Great.
Like I could paint the picture.
Yeah, tell us.
Immediately. So luckily for me, sarcasm, we were in an argument when this happened. I couldn't tell you what the hell it was, but I know we were in an argument. And we had a group of friends that we shared. And during that time span, I don't remember how many days into our argument or tiff it was, but she was taken into the hospital. Like, we all knew she had a breathing problem, and she had severe asthma and was on a breathing machine. And I think that at that point we just knew that it was asthma related.
Mm-hmm.
And I vividly remember being at Danielle's house, who was my very best friend at that time. And she was like, listen, I know you guys are in an argument, but like, this is bad. Like, I don't think she's going to make it. And I remember her saying that and me being like appalled, like, what are you talking about? Like, you're so dramatic. Like, she's fine. I remember I literally said, she will be fine. This is fine. Like, she just has asthma. And she's like, no, you don't understand. Like, I think this is really bad. And I think her and I bickered or something and went to bed. And then I don't remember how long it was in between that conversation and this next memory, but I have a memory of me being at home. I was in my room. I had like my door locked because I was 13 at the time and I was like an asshole. And my mom had like knocked on my door and I said like, go away or something. And she was like, no, I'm serious. You need to let me in. I need to talk to you. And I was like, I immediately opened the door and I was like, what? Like super bitchy. And she's like, you need to sit down. And I was like, what do you want from me right now? Like I was being super mean to my mom. And she was like, stop, sit down. And I was like, okay, what? And she's like, so-and-so just called and Leslie's not going to make it through the night. And I was like, what the fuck are you talking about?
Yeah.
And I was hysterical. And I was like, in that same headspace where Danielle and I were, and I was like, this is silly. Like, what the hell are you on about? This doesn't make sense. And then I was just like inconsolable because the grief of like being in this argument and knowing that Danielle told me that and I didn't listen and like being so caught off guard and being, number one, just like 13 and not understanding what that even means when someone says that to you. And I vividly remember my grandparents coming over and we were sitting on the sofa downstairs and I was just sobbing. Like I just could not wrap my head around what everyone was talking about. Like I just, mostly because I didn't realize from the beginning how serious it was. And also because I just didn't I didn't know that such a thing could kill someone.
Yeah.
Right. So I will also always remember that my grandpa kind of like grabbed me and was like, listen, like, I know this sounds crazy, but I believe that like if you put all your energy into something, like you can make a difference. Like you need to calm the fuck down and like breathe and just like really will her to like be strong and be okay. Like she's gonna be okay. Like you just have to believe. Like you can't sit here and cry. Like you've got to pull it together and like be there for your friend. And I was like so desperate because I had no warning. Like again, at this point, before that moment, I literally just thought that like my friend that was in an argument had a minor thing and that everyone was trying to guilt me and was like out to get me.
Yeah.
And that's why they were trying to make me feel bad because you're so dumb when you're 13.
Yeah.
And the next morning I woke up and again, I don't recall who called my mom, but she came in and was like, she's gone. I knew Leslie because we went to middle school together. During the summer before 7th grade, we were in a cheerleading team together. And we happened to already have a cheerleading meeting or practice the day that she died. And so I fell to the ground. My mom told me that. I didn't understand. Like I was still so not in the mindset to accept that. I remember going to bed the night before and just like believing what my grandpa said and like wishing it wouldn't be true. And I vaguely remember like holding something and like wishing on it. And I think it was like something that we had as a cheerleading team, like a memento or something. And I had this like IKEA bed frame and it had a ledge as the headboard and I put it there. And I just like all these weird memories that I remember of those moments because I was so like malleable as a 13-year-old that I just, again, like someone told me something, I didn't believe it, and that was my reality. And then someone told me I could wish something to be true, and that was my new reality. Like I was too malleable to believe whatever someone told me. I was too desperate to like understand what the fuck was happening. And so I remember very distinctly trying to get ready for practice and just crying nonstop and like not being able to do my makeup. I don't know why I was wearing makeup when I was 13, but I could not keep my makeup on. And then I remember driving in the car with my mom, and she was holding my hand, and like we didn't hold hands or do anything affectionate. So I very vividly remember that. I remember parking in the parking lot of the school we used to practice at. And I got out of the car and I saw our junior coach, and I said, like, I miss Leslie. And I was crying. And she said, oh, don't worry, she'll be back soon. And I realized she didn't know, and that she thought that she was still in the hospital. And then I looked at her and I said, like, she's gone. And then I don't remember what my mom did, but I honestly don't remember what her reaction was. I just remember walking into the practice room and realizing that no one knew. And
that's the only reason why people were still there.
Everyone was still talking. And I remember just like walking in, I had tunnel vision, and everyone was like, like sitting in their own groups. And I was just like angry. I became angry, and I was like, fuck you guys. Like,
how can you be happy?
Why am I here? Like, what the fuck? Like, and then I remember my coach, our main coach, announcing it to everyone. And I remember everyone looking at me because I was like her closest friend on the team.
Sure.
And I just like lost my shit. And I don't remember what happened after that. I think we sat for a minute and hugged, and then I think we left. And then I don't remember if it was that day or the next day, but my best friend and I from the cheerleading team, her name was Katie. We were all three best friends because we all were on the same cheer squad. We went to the hospital, and she was on life support, or I guess it's not life support once you've already passed, but she was on a ventilator because she was donating her organs. And my mom, before I left, was like, I will drop you at Katie's house, but are you sure you want to do this? Are you sure you want to go see your friend when she's already passed away? And I was like, yes. Like, are you insane? Of course I do. Right. Katie's going. I need to go. Of course. And I remember driving in the car with her dad. He had a big, like...
Katie's dad.
A big Ford SUV of some kind. I don't think we talked the whole way there. We parked. We were walking up to the hospital unit. And like, as you know, as my friend, I hate hospitals. So I was a little like on edge. A year before that, I had my appendix taken out. So I was like, dude, fuck hospitals. Like, I hate this place. We checked in. We put guest visitor badges on. And she was in one of those rooms that had like the sliding glass doors. And she was breathing because she was on a breathing machine. But her eyes were closed. And I was terrified. Like, I just could not process it. I was 13. Like, I didn't understand what I was looking at. And then she went first and grabbed her hand. And I think she was talking to her or something. I just remember she touched her. And my immediate thought was like, I can't go near her. Like, what the fuck? Like, this is... I was terrified. I was in the corner. I don't think I was crying. I know that I was crying before, but I don't think I was crying during that time because I was so shocked and couldn't understand. And then I think I remember her like kind of nudging me, like, go ahead, hold her hand. And her hand was like, felt like a plastic doll. Like, it was like pumped with air, but like weird. It didn't feel normal. And I was terrified. And I don't remember if I talked to her or not. I don't remember if we were there long, but I remember walking out of the hospital, and then I was like very upset. Yeah. I went home. I don't remember what that exact process was that day. And again, I don't remember if that was the same day she died. Maybe it was, I think. I don't think they keep you very long. But I just remember feeling like very alone and very confused because it seemed like everyone around me was expecting this outcome except for me. Yeah. And I don't know if that's because I was young and mad or I didn't understand or whatever. And the craziest part of all this is that her and I both had asthma. And during cheerleading practice, when we would do cardio, like running around whatever place we were practicing at, her and I would both be the only two sitting out because we'd asthma and we couldn't run. And so in my head, we were like at the same level.
Right.
And I knew she had a breathing machine at home and I saw her use the breathing treatment, but I don't think I ever knew how bad it really was. And that's why it was so hard for me to understand, because technically to this day I have asthma, but am I on an inhaler? No. Am I on a breathing machine? No.
It's crazy. I can't, I'm, 26 and my dad died, and it's like, I can't process it. I mean, I'm trying, but death is weird. Like, we are supposed to go through it, but I think our culture and society we're not set up for it. We're not set up to watch this happen and have our people around us die like this, especially at such a young age. I remember in 2nd or 3rd grade, there's a girl died in like 2nd or 3rd grade, and that was my first whatever of death
experience.
But it just, you don't feel it till you feel it. You know what I mean? Like, until it's someone that has impacted
you. It hit me like a tidal wave.
Yeah.
And like some people, when I talk to them about it, they ask me if I wish I never went to see her. And no, like, I'm glad I did.
Yeah.
But sometimes I wonder, like, the specific spur of the moment decisions I made during that time, like, which one of those decisions actually made the trauma that I now deal with?
Sure.
And like, there's no way I could have known that, and I still don't know that. But I often think about, like, when we talk about grief in specific, or when someone asks me, because I have a very big tattoo that's like a memoriam of her, when they ask me about her or what it meant to me or whatever, I still don't exactly know if it was the fact that I lost someone so young, or the fact that I saw a dead body so young, or the fact that it was my friend who was there one day and not the net. Like, I don't know.
Yeah. Or it could be all of it. And
I'm sure combined it's fucked up.
Yeah.
Like, no one can come out of that and not be fucked up. I'm fucked up.
Yeah.
But I don't, like, I don't know if you took out one piece of the equation, if it would have made a drastic difference.
Sure.
Because I think in a way I had to see it for my own eyes.
Yeah. To believe it, to have it.
Yeah. And I will never forget, like, I can't even explain like how her hand felt, but it just wasn't like human,
Sure.
you know? And it's just, I wouldn't say that that's what keeps me up at night. Like, I don't think I have nightmares about like holding a dead person's hand, but I do have trauma about abandonment that like is a very blanket issue. Yeah. Which I think would still be there had I not gone. But like, on the flip side, my friend Katie would have gone by herself and not that me and her talk about it now. We're not close. We follow each other on social media like most of us do, but it's not that we share that connection. I think it's just that, like, I did what I felt right at the time, and I don't regret that.
Yeah, you shouldn't. I mean, you'll have that memory forever. Yeah. Did you go to therapy after?
You know, and this is again, like, I have such a hard time remembering my memory from that point of my life. And I think, like you pointed out earlier today when we were having a personal conversation, I don't know if that's my brain or body's way of like protecting myself.
Oh, sure.
I know that I went to therapy, and I know that I went in my like early 20s for other things. Also because I knew I had past trauma. Yeah. I don't remember if I went right after that.
Yeah, I get that too, because just thinking about myself personally, I could tell you everything that happened when I got the phone call. Like, I could paint the whole day.
Like it was yesterday.
Yep, but the rest of the days after that, no idea.
And you know what's funny is, until this point, I've never thought about asking my mom. And like, I have a very strained relationship with my mom, but I know she'd be happy to share it with me. And it would just be interesting to call her and hear her recollection of it.
Her whole perspective.
Her perspective.
On the
because
whole
we've
thing.
never talked about it. And over the years, even though our relationship has been weird, on the anniversary of Leslie's death, I will sometimes text her and say, you know, can you believe it's been 10 years? Can you believe it's been 12 years? Can you believe? And she'll kind of respond, me knowing her, in a way that is empathetic, which we have a hard time with connecting because our relationship is strained. But the reality is she went through that with me.
Yep.
Like, whether she did a good job of supporting me or not, she saw that.
Mm-hmm.
She knew who Leslie was. Like, and I think it hurts her too. Like, but the shitty part is that I'm not close enough with her to share that with her. Like, I remember things to detail. Like, again, at that time I had a strained relationship with my dad because my parents were separated or divorced or whatever. And he sent me an email, and I remember it being really cold and saying, I'm sorry that you lost your friend. Like, I'm here for you. And I was mad about that email. And it's like, probably still how I would react today. When things happen to me, I'm like, you don't understand.
Right.
Like, it's not a good enough answer or response. Like, nothing anyone could say helps. So I still understand why I responded that way. But I remember even telling my mom, like, tattletaling on him or something, being like, Dad had the audacity to send me an email. Like, but I think the people around me felt it just like me, because they were like, what the fuck? Like, you guys are 13.
That shouldn't happen to 13.
What the fuck? Yeah. And I think, again, like, I didn't know any difference. So I had no idea how crazy it really was. Like, in my world, of course it was crazy. But also in my world, losing a cheerleading, like, competition was the end of my world.
Sure, yeah.
You know? So I just, looking back, I feel a little bad that I was so hard on my parents about it. Because I'm sure to this day my mom carries that weight too, or my dad, or maybe they're scared to ask me about it because they've never asked me either.
Yeah.
We never talk about it.
Yeah. Well, you're going to now.
I would call her on the speakerphone if you're down.
Yeah, you can.
Because to be honest, I never thought about asking, but there's so much I don't know. And there's so many things I could do to heal those things. I could DM Katie.
Yeah. And see from
say,
her perspective.
Do you remember what happened?
Yeah.
Or what day was that we went to see her? Or like, what was her cause of death? Like, because when you're in your own bubble, like, you just shut it out, and whatever you remember is what your new reality is.
Yeah. And that's it. And
I'd love to know what really happened, or if my recollection is correct.
Right. Yeah. I mean,
it would hurt just as bad, but I'd love to know.
Hi, Boo.
Hi, Mom.
How you doing?
First of all, I'm fine. I didn't mean to scare you.
Oh, that's okay.
Do you have a moment?
Yes, darling, of course.
Okay. I don't really remember, like, what her cause of death was.
Right.
And I also, like, would be interested to know what your point of view was, like, the day you told me, like, or what you remember about it.
So let's remember now. So she died from, what happened was she had an asthma attack.
Mm-hmm.
I think they tried to do the inhaler. They called the paramedics, but I think they didn't do CPR, and that was the problem. So by the time they got to her, they brought her back, but it was too late. Her brain was dead. She'd been without oxygen for too long. So she did survive, kind of, you know what I mean?
But she was in a coma. Now that you say that, I remember she was in a coma.
Well, she was brain dead. She was on the machine, and because that's what they do. They put you on the machine to see if, and then they test you, like they test your brain waves and stuff, to see if there's any activity, and then they can tell you, that basically they're dead. It's just the life support that's keeping them alive.
And like, so here's what I remember. This is what I said previously. I remember her and I were in an argument when this happened. And I remember that when you came to my room, you like, my door was locked or something, and you like knocked on my door and were like, you need to sit down. And I was like, what? Like being annoyed. Like, what do you want? And you're like, listen, you need to sit down. And then I think you told me like, so-and-so said she's not going to make it through the night. Who told you that? Who called you?
Now, I think what happened was, let me think, it was Amy, maybe.
The coach, Amy?
Yes. But I remember you being very upset because you said you were mean to her.
And I remember that I was like, inconsolable to the point where you called Nanny and Granddad.
Yes, yeah.
And then I remember, weirdly...
And then the next day we went to cheer practice, or maybe later that day. And then Amy told everyone. At cheer.
And no one knew, and I didn't realize no one knew until... Do you remember we got out of the car and I said to Shannon, like, I miss her. And she said, oh, she'll be back. Don't worry.
Yeah.
Do you remember that?
Yeah, I remember that because I think it was only me and Amy that knew then.
Yeah. And then I said, no, Shannon, she's not going to be back. She's gone. And then we cried in the parking lot. And then we went inside and Amy announced it. And then did we go home? So that was the next day that we announced it to everyone? Because I went to see Leslie, and I don't remember if that was the same day or the next day.
Well, they kept her alive for a couple of days. Because what happens in those situations is basically her mom and dad had to tell them to turn up the life support. So they kept her alive for a couple of days because, I mean, whatever they tell you, that's your child. You're not immediately going to say, oh, turn it off.
Yeah.
You know? So I mean, you'd like pray for a miracle and it's got to like sink in what happened.
Yeah.
So they did keep her alive for a few days. And I remember that you went and you said it like she just looked like she was sleeping.
I remember you telling me not to go or that I should think about going or something.
Yes. I didn't want you to go because I thought it would upset you more. But actually, I don't think it did.
Yeah. That's what I was saying. I think that I was so young and that I could not wrap my head around it. And like the only way I could have possibly understood was to see it.
Right.
And it wasn't like she got her head bashed in or something.
But it didn't happen over like one day. They kept her alive for 2 or 3 days.
Yeah.
It wasn't like immediately that they turned it off.
Yeah.
Because they have to get permission, and then they did have to decide whether they want to donate the organs and all of that stuff. And then, of course, they still want to do tests, especially when it's a young person.
I think what's interesting to me is that I remember only specific things, and I don't remember like the most important details, like what was her cause of death, and like.
No, I'm like that with my dad dying. I don't remember. I remember the moment he died, and I remember little bits of his funeral, but there's big things that I don't remember.
Yeah. And I remember...
That's normal.
I remember her funeral, and I remember, like... I don't know. I just remember, like, us driving to practice, and I was sad, obviously. And I remember... I don't know. It's weird. It's, like, patchy. It's a weird, patchy memory.
Yeah, that's normal, I think, because I have that, too.
I know how I felt because it was my friend, but like, did you feel as caught off guard as I felt, or like, how did you feel? Because you knew her.
Terrible. Yeah, it was terrible for everybody that somebody so young went like that. I mean, I don't know. I don't think we ever really knew who was in the house with her, like whether her mom was there or whether it was just her sister. But I think she collapsed with the asthma. And then, like I said, when it takes the paramedics a while to get there.
Yeah.
And they did CPR and brought her back, but her brain had been without oxygen for too long.
It's just interesting because we've never talked about it, and I've never, like, asked someone else's perspective.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it was terrible for you and everybody. I mean, remember we used to pick her up and take her to practice and...
Yeah, she was one of my best friends.
Yeah. Yeah, it was.
Did you know, or do you remember that they donated her heart?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't remember any other organ donation, but I remember a little girl got her heart.
I think they donated a lot of the organs.
Yeah.
And I remember when you did the cheerleading competition.
Mm-hmm.
And her dad, remember you left that space for her?
Yeah.
And then her dad was sitting in the front by himself, and I went and sat with him and held his hand.
I remember being in a stadium, and like the whole stadium stood up because that was our first thing without her.
Yes, that was that same time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we all cried.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, it was just awful, but it was just like the worst nightmare.
Yeah.
And I don't think to this day anybody really understands why, because like I say, that's not a usual thing. Even if you have pretty bad asthma, generally you can control it.
Yeah. Well, thank you for sharing.
Of course, darling, anytime. Okay, darling, I love you.
Love you too.
Okay, baby.
Okay, bye. That was interesting.
Yeah.
So, essentially, my memory's pretty correct.
Yeah. How does that make you feel?
Not as crazy.
It's good. Unless you're both crazy.
Yeah.
I'm just kidding.
I know that we both are crazy. But it's interesting because I guess I was hoping for someone to say, actually, this is what happened.
Right.
But it's not.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like she has pretty good insight. She seems like she remembers like it was yesterday, too. It's been 15 years.
I think it was pretty traumatic.
Yeah.
And what's interesting is everyone in my family has had trauma, but we usually are separate.
Mm.
And that was like the one thing that my mom and I shared.
Yeah.
Like it was awful.
Yeah.
And we did it together.
Right.
Even if she sucked at it or she didn't say the right thing, anytime I think of that experience, I think of my mom too. Like it wasn't just me, it was also my mom.
It's like a little beauty in the pain that you guys had it together.
Yeah, but what's weird is that that's the first time we've ever talked about what actually happened.
Yeah.
We'll talk about the anniversary. She'll say, "Oh, that's so sweet," or something. Because at the end of the day, I know that she knew who she was and she remembers and went through it similar to me, but we've never actually talked about that day.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
14 and a half years later.
It took that long.
Here we are.
To just say, like, hey, what do you remember?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But, I mean, if you don't think about talking about it, it's like, why would you know what I mean? It's not.
Well, yes and no, because for me, it's been a big part of who I am. It's a huge part of who I am. It's taught me, like, to be more conscious of how you treat people or where you leave conversations. Like, try to resolve stupid arguments or serious arguments, and just like how quickly shit can change, like severely change in a blink of an eye.
Yeah.
I could leave here, we could argue, and that could be the last time I see you.
Yeah.
And that's real life.
Real life.
Yeah.
This is a little off subject, but the idea of that, I'll never forget. I was like, it was right out of high school. A friend came over and she was going to drive home, and I was supposed to go home with her and like back to her house in her car. And I literally decided at the last minute not to go. And she was driving home and she flipped her car, and the passenger side where I would have been sat was smashed all the way up to where she was. Like I would have been done for.
Gone.
And it's just so crazy to think how like in a split second everything could change. I mean, it was like my dad. He slipped and hit his head.
Right.
See ya.
And it's something that I don't think anyone should live their day to day or minute to minute or hour to hour by, because that's just morbid. But like, it forces you to think about who you are, what's important to you, who's important to you, and to make sure they know that. Because I think even my mom, what's crazy is she remembers me saying like, I was so mean to her because we were in an argument. And I still hold that today. Like, we were in an argument. Did she know? Like, was her last memory of us as our friendship that I was mad at her? Over, I don't even remember what? Like, over something stupid that 13-year-olds argue over? Like, or did she know that to this day would always think of her and, like, remember her and have a tattoo for her and talk about her on a podcast 15 years later? And, you know?
Yeah.
Just that's the stuff that haunts me.
It's crazy because it's real,
and it's like things I'll never know.
Right, and whether it's okay or not okay, it doesn't matter. Like, it's there, right? Yeah.
And there's nothing someone could say to fix it, which is what I think is what grief is.
Yep.
A thing that people cannot fix for you, you cannot fix for you, but you find a way.
Sure.
To function with it because it's with you. Like, it's not going to go away. I'm an adult now. I have my adult life now. I don't cheerlead anymore.
Mhm.
I don't do things that would technically remind me of her, but I still think of her.
Yeah.
And that's grief.
Yeah. Do you believe in God or afterlife, or where do you think, what happens when we die?
I'm not a religious person.
Mm-hmm.
I would say I gave religion a chance growing up
Mm.
and before and after this happened with her death. And I've never felt necessarily moved by religion, or that I even believe what they preach when I go to church.
Mm-hmm.
My personal belief is I don't know if there's a God. I'm not saying there's not or there is. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
I think there is something
Mm.
after we die, and I don't know what it is. But if there's not, I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
I don't think I need her spirit to be around to make me heal, but I've had experiences that make me think there is something, and it helps a little. It makes me feel like a little warranted that I still think about her, because sometimes I think I'm crazy. Like, would she even remember who I am if she was still alive?
Right.
Like, if she was still alive and we were past our high school and school years, would we even be friends? Like,
Right.
why am I'm spending my time on this person, and like, if she lived, would we still be friends?
Sure.
That's the stuff that like rattles my brain.
Yeah. I mean, it's a great question. And I think, if one person is listening to this that lost a friend in high school too, or middle school and like elementary school, whenever, and just because you weren't blood, or just because you weren't the best, like hip to hip, it's like, but you can still be so impacted by someone's grief and by someone's death that is a friend. And like, I feel like friends are so valuable. You learn and grow together. I mean, that's a whole separate thing is to talk about friends, because I think it's so important. You know what I mean? It's like,
Especially at 13.
yeah. I mean, you're becoming who
Especially
you are.
what I went through at 13.
Sure.
Who I was with my family, personal struggles. My
Mhm.
friends were everything. And I think that year especially was when I started to realize that. And to be honest, like that, her death was like the catalyst to me being close to my grandparents.
Mhm.
Like the day that they came over, the night that phone call happened about her not making it through the night, and the night my mom decided to call them was probably, and it would have been an interesting question to ask her, was probably the night that my mom realized they could calm me down. And the night that I realized I needed my grandparents.
Yeah.
And since that day, we are closer than I am with my parents.
If someone's listening and they just lost a friend, what is something you would want to tell them?
I guess that they're warranted in feeling how they're feeling.
Yeah.
Like whether the moment that happened was on good terms or bad terms, like that was that's your friend. Whether you were acquaintances, you knew them from class, you were best friends, you were related, like whatever it is, don't guilt yourself more about what your relationship was or pick it apart. Just accept like wholeheartedly that like you feel grief because you cared about them.
Mm-hmm.
I think I spent too much time, and I still do, analyzing whether I'm even warranted to still care. Like, did she only consider me an acquaintance, not a best friend? Like, why am I thinking about that? The bottom line is that I cared about this person, and years and years and years later, I haven't even spoken to her, and I still take time to talk about her and think about her and go leave flowers. Like, I wish I would have spent more time embracing and remembering her memory and not questioning so many things, which I don't think anyone's going to hear this and change that pattern. That's just what grief does.
Yeah.
First you feel guilty, then you question everything you've ever done.
Sure.
Then you're sad, then you're mad, then you're sad again. Like it's crazy.
Yeah.
It's a crazy roller coaster.
We're meant to do this together, and like, for thousands and thousands of bajillions of years, like people were around death all the time, right? Like you grew up, your grandparents in the house, they would die. You had farm animals, they would die. Like you're around it, but
you had people surrounding you that you're all doing it together. Now it's like, you know, so-and-so dies. It's like we put on this mask, like, everything's fine. Everything, you know, we'll be fine. This is, you know, get through it. And it's like, that's not it. And I'm just glad that you acknowledge it. And, you know, what you've done is you've taken your grief and you've turned it into, you said, like, your story. This is part of who you are. It's your DNA. And now you're able to help and encourage people listening, like, and just in day-to-day life, like, you get it. You know what grief is, and you know that being sad sucks and being alone sucks. So, like, what can we do to change it, right?
And it's just even that part of saying, like, yeah, this is fucked up.
Yeah.
This is inconsolable. Like, I know nothing I say is going to help you. Like, just not having that weird fake barrier.
Yeah.
You know?
Like, I'm so sorry.
Like, you're allowed to, well, and you can say that, but it's so hard when you're in it because you feel, are you even warranted to be this sad?
Sure.
And like, when everyone else is pretending to put on the happy face and it's all good and everyone's happy, you start to blame yourself because that's the headspace you're in.
Yeah.
And if you just have someone that's like, no, this is bad. Like, you lost your father figure. This is detrimental.
Mm-hmm.
You're allowed to be sad for however long you need to be sad.
Yeah.
And I'm going to hang out. And whenever you want to talk, or maybe every once in a while I'll ask you if you're okay, like, I'm not leaving. You know, I just wish someone would have like grabbed me by the shoulders and been like, this is going to be okay. You know, but I didn't have that. It was like sad for a while and then poof, never happened.
Yeah.
And it's been this like backpack that I carry.
Do you feel
everywhere.
like now you're able to be that person for other people?
Yes and no. It's interesting because I very much understand the benefit of having someone like do the right thing and ask, but I'm also so deep in my rabbit hole of like, push it down, don't talk about it, don't acknowledge it, this is not happening, that I know that if I talk to someone else about it, it's all gonna come up, you know. So it's like it's almost like it's been too long of me handling it the wrong way, that if I dare step foot in the same realm of that, I will unleash like all these things. And truthfully, like, I'm good where I'm at. Like, I would consider myself happy. I would consider myself stable. But I know that I have other parts of me that are not, and I accept that. And I accept that sometimes it will never come out. Sometimes I'll be triggered by things, weird things, or things I knew would be associated, or whatever it is. And I just, as it happens, I accept it. And hopefully, if it happens, the people that I care about or that care about me already can kind of tell why, because I've already shared this part of me.
Yeah.
That's, I think, the key. It doesn't have to be right away or on the first date. You don't have to walk up to people and say, hi, I lost my best friend when I was 13. I'm fucked up. But maybe when you talk about your past relationships and why they failed, like for me, I have what I would consider like severe abandonment issues. Stems from my parents, sure, but stems from losing my best friend at 13. Stems from realizing that at any time, any moment, anywhere, anyone can poof disappear.
Forever.
And you're gone. And you're alone. That's it. Unfixable. Like, and that's become who I am. I am like that. That is how I fear about my relationships, my friendships, my boyfriends, you know, like.
You feel like you keep them now at like an arm's distance just because you don't want to get too.
No, I wouldn't say that I make an effort to not be close to people. But the second I realize we could break up, or my friend is moving, or something's changing our relationship, I automatically go to like, holy fuck, I'm alone. It's happening. I'm alone. Like, they're gone. They're gone forever. And I'm just immediately in this like black hole of like, time by myself, which is so unrealistic because I know that even if all my friends left me, I've got my grandparents. Even if my grandparents pass away, I've got my dad. Like, I know I have something, but it's this weird, like, trained thought process of like, they're gone, you're fucked. You're on your own. Like, you have one oar and you're in an ocean with huge waves. Like, good luck, you know? It's just, I don't know. It's a weird triggering process.
Yeah.
Because in reality, when she passed away, I would say I had a strained relationship with my parents, but I had no idea what I was in for with them. I still had my parents.
Yeah.
It wasn't as bad as it was going to be in my adult life.
Right.
So I don't know why I took it that way, but like I said, like anything that happens to me regarding a friendship ending or a relationship ending or a fight or something, I go right back to square one.
Thank you so much for doing this, though.
Thanks for inviting me. It's crazy how this worked out.
Yeah, well, I hope it's like helpful for, it's helpful for me to hear. I hope it's helpful for you to talk about, and that's if like one person is listening that, they either can help their friends or it helps them, or it just helps.
Well, let's just recap too, is that you knew me when Leslie passed away. And I vividly remember you being one of my only friends that supported me. You always talked about her with me. It wasn't like an off-topic subject. And I didn't find it annoying. I found it like it wasn't taboo to bring her up. Like, we can talk about her. It's all good. And like, you would bring her up, and you would bring her up in positive ways. And I don't know if you remember, but like, I had a song that reminded me of her. You would play it with me.
Oh, yeah. Where'd you go?
And like, yeah. And you weren't afraid. Like, it wasn't weird for you to play it.
Yeah.
Like, you weren't afraid of making me sad, or like, you were just like, yeah, here's that one song. Like, I just will always remember that, like, you were my friend that just like understood. Like, we can talk about her without crying. We can talk about her without it being negative.
Right.
Like, and so it's interesting that full circle, like, you are the person talking about it, because whether you remember it or not, like, you were the, like, perfect example of a friend, how to support another friend. Like, I don't think you were consciously doing it. It's just who you are as a person. Like, you just, you knew it wasn't bad to talk about her.
It's a nice thing to say.
So like, idea. You were one of my only friends. I'm not kidding. Like, you were one of my only friends that didn't like try to not bring her up out of fear of making me sad. Like, you brought her up in a way that would be like, remember Leslie? And you said she did this thing, and like, we would laugh about it or be happy. Like, it just like you maintained my memory of her being alive, not my memory of her like passed away.
Yeah.
So when I look back, that means to me that like my memories of her are those times, not that 3-4 days or God knows how long that was of when it actually happened. Like, the bulk of my memories are the good times, and mostly because you, as my good friend, like, shaped those times.
Crazy.
And it's weird, but like, again, had we not had this podcast, I would have never told you that.
Right.
Or we wouldn't have talked about it, because like, why would I DM you and tell you that,
Yeah.
But you, like, remember earlier today when I asked you if you remember about going to the fair?
Yep.
Do you remember that song came on
the ride?
On a ride.
Yeah. That's so weird.
And
I didn't until like
and
now.
And we looked at each other, and you're like, it's the song.
Yeah.
And I was
I
like,
do remember that.
It is the song. And I don't remember if I cried or not, but we just had that moment of like, wow.
Yeah.
Like, it's playing because she's like.
It was like she's here.
She's here or something.
Yeah.
But it wasn't
weird.
Sad.
Yeah.
It was like, and again, like you said, you weren't good friends with her, but you felt my grief because we were good friends. And you, just by being real, instead of, for example, you could have heard that song and been like, Jackie, don't cry.
Yeah.
It's positive. She's here. You're like, wow. Like, just like me. we heard it and we both were like, holy shit.
Yeah.
Like the song's playing and we're on this ride and like we're both together and we know what this song means and it's on and we didn't put it on. Like, this is crazy. Like we just, and then we didn't have to say anymore. We just like shared that moment.
Yeah.
And knew what it meant, but it wasn't negative or positive.
It just was.
Yeah.
That's so crazy. I totally forgot until all this right now.
I think about that moment all the time. Like, all the time.
Who knew? Crazy.
Yeah.
Well, thanks.
Thank
That's
you.
nice. That makes
You're a
me
good
feel
friend.
nice. I appreciate it. You're a good friend.
No, you're a good friend.
Thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
Love you. Bye. That was so crazy.
Yeah.
Like, no joke, not even just for this. Like, there was no pre-plan or anything, but she, like, genuinely had never talked to her mom about it and then decided while we were recording that she wanted to call her mom.
Yeah.
So she just sent her a quick text saying, hey, can I call you real quick? And are you, like, available? And she said, yeah. And then they let it all happen on the podcast.
Yeah.
What did you think?
It was great. Excuse me. She has great speaking skills. And what?
How was the
Conversation with her mom?
No, everything, the whole thing.
Oh. Sorry, my throat's like dry. Yeah, I think it was really interesting. I think it was really interesting, and it just made me kind of think more. Like, I don't know, she just brought up like good points about like what grief actually is. And then just throughout her experience, I feel like it was more unique because she was so young. And then just like the questions that she like asked herself, I was like asking that to myself, even though like I didn't go through the situation, you know what I mean? So yeah, it was just crazy because like, yes, when you're 13 and you lose someone, like that's super traumatic. But I also feel like regardless of what age you are, it's going to be traumatic no matter what. So like I don't really think age defines that so much.
Yeah.
But I'm sure like it has a little bit to do with it as well. But then it also made me question because like I know when you were younger, like you lost people too. So like when you were talking to Jackie, did that come up for you?
Yeah. Who are you referring to?
I don't know like specifically, but I know that you have witnessed death and like just people close to you when you were younger.
Yeah, I've seen people, like I've seen a lot of dead bodies, and there was someone that was in my elementary school that I mentioned. I don't know if I kept it in there or not. There was someone in my elementary school that I mentioned that I had a class with her, and I have this very strong memory with her before she died of us eating chicken teriyaki and rice. And that's something I'll just never forget at the the lunch tables.
But it did like talking to her about that specific age, like being younger, like did that bring up anything for you or not really?
Not really. There was something that rocked me though. And while editing the podcast, I almost like skipped through it. Like I didn't want to hear it again.
Do you remember what it was?
I do. It was when she was talking about when she went and visited her friend in the hospital and how she like felt her hand and how it felt different and how she's just there looking at this body hooked up to all these machines. Like that was literally me and my dad and like holding his hand and that made me feel, I don't know. I feel like that was the first time doing these where I'm just like, okay, you know what I mean? Like that's
like it was like really real.
Yeah, and like that's touching into like I don't know. It was just very realistic and it was very I put myself there.
Yeah, like I felt like the storyline, not that it's a storyline, but like, just the way that it worked out with her friend dying, like where it was she was in the hospital. They kept her alive for a few days on the machines or whatever. And then like the family had to make the decisions and then like go say bye, family and friends. Like that whole experience, like I felt like that was very like on the same wavelength of what happened with your dad.
Yeah.
So that was pretty crazy because it's like a whole different time and place.
15 years
and
ago.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing. And,
Yeah.
you know, and it just kind of shows too that here we have someone that went through because she lost her friend. But the friend that she lost, like her family's grieving, like siblings, her, you know, her other friends. It's just crazy how much of an impact we have on the people around us.
What do you mean?
Like Jackie, who has been rocked by this, changed her life forever.
Yeah.
Like the loss of her friend, right? I haven't lost someone that close to me as a friend yet.
Right.
But it just shows that like when some, like, let's say, so her friend that did die, like she, you know, she has parents and a sister and other friends. And it's just like, it really affects everyone.
Totally.
But you, no matter how you are in relation, even like you're gonna be affected by the death of someone, regardless of you are blood related or your friends or your acquaintances or you just know them. You know it. I remember when we were freshmen in high school, someone got hit by a car and died. I didn't know who he was. He was my age though, and it still rocked me. You know, like I had no idea who he was, but just the thought of someone that relatively close, like you don't think this stuff happens, you know, around you or to people that you know, and it's gnarly.
Yeah. I think listening back to like her speaking and her story, it was crazy because the way that she told it and like all the details and just like it was so realistic and made death like real.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
She remember, and she made it seem like it just happened.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. And just was like really crazy because I feel like sometimes when you talk about death, even when you're just like talking about it to someone, it's not necessarily like the feeling of realness isn't within the conversation, if that makes sense. But like with her, it was like very much present.
Yeah, it's powerful. No, but it is. It's. You're right. Like, so, because sometimes when I do talk about about my dad, sometimes like I can't think of the words exactly, but sometimes it is very much I'm just talking about it. Yeah. And it seems distant. But then sometimes it's like, oh, ow. It hurts and it stings and it's right there. It's right in front of my face. Yeah,
totally. So how are you doing?
I am okay right now. I feel like I'll never be able to say I'm good. I don't know, or
That's
at least
fine.
Or at least I don't know if I'll ever be like, yeah, I'm good.
Will you ever be like, I'm really bad?
Totally.
Okay.
Well, once more people die or once I'm sad.
Yeah. Oh, another thing that I just thought of is like, it is so crazy how like, I mean, when you talk to someone and you're like, so who died? And that like immediately just throws them off guard and like stings them right off the bat. And we kind of talked about that last time, how like you saying that you felt uncomfortable and like it felt weird for you. So like how was it asking that question this time?
To Jackie, it was, you know, people come in here knowing what it is they're about to talk about.
Right.
But I think that just direct like who died.
But how was it for you?
It was okay. I'm not associating with the words who died back to me. It really is hit or miss. Like the way I could say is like, it really is situational. Like I could say who died 100 times and maybe time number 78 is when it gets me. You know what I mean? It's just like in the moment. But like
the last time it got you and this time it's like not so much.
Yeah, not so much. I don't know why.
Yeah.
It just depends. But like I said, when she talked about when she was in the hospital, like that got me.
Totally. Because you can kind of just like picture everything back again.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's crazy.
But I'm doing okay. You know, I feel a little overwhelmed with what's going on in the world. And
Mhm.
with that comes, I've always been a worrier, but the fear of losing my grandma, my grandpa, my mom, like
Yeah.
3 people that mean a lot to me. And, for what's going on, it's very dangerous for them to be around and inside and outside. And so that's just a little overwhelming. But there is this like sad truth, and it's just I don't have to worry about my dad
Yeah.
anymore. Like there's like this feeling of relief.
Yeah. You tend to refer to that a lot.
Yeah,
Why do you think that is?
because I worry a lot about people I care about.
Yeah.
And I feel like it's kind of like my healing, where it's like that has been laid to rest, no pun intended, but like the idea of like, as sad and awful as him dying is I don't have to worry anymore. I don't have to call and check in and make sure he's okay, and
Yeah.
everything in his world is fine, and he's his medication's okay, his memory's okay. You know what I mean? Like it's just I don't have to stress, and to me there's some beauty in that.
Yeah. It's freeing in a way.
Yeah. Well, thank you. Love you.
Love you.
Bye.
Bye.